All right, my friends, in the last section, we were talking about the Cold War that was happening with the United States and the Soviet Union. And the big question that we were trying to answer is how to stop that spread of communism, which is what the Soviet Union wanted to happen. And so I talked to you about it in the last section, and that it was a Cold War, that there was not a lot of action happening. They weren't fighting because there's this fear of using the nuclear weapon. And so the United States and the Soviet Union will not fight directly during this war. Instead, we're going to see what becomes known as proxy wars. And so we're going to talk about a war today. It's called the War in Korea, and it's considered a proxy war, which means the United States and the Soviet Union are not directly involved, but the big question is all about communism, and both of those countries are indirectly involved. So let's go ahead and get our notes out. Get you some background information. Since 1920, there had been two groups fighting in China. The Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party being led by Mao Zedong, and then the Nationalist Party, which was being supported by the United States, which should not come as a surprise to you, because the United States does not want communism to spread. But during World War II, we're actually going to see both of those groups come together to fight against Japan. But as soon as World War II is over, they're going to go back to fighting one another. And the Chinese Communist Party will win in 1949. And the United States is bitter about that because communism just spread a little bit. And that's what we were trying to stop during the Cold War. So this map is important because Japan, I'm circling it here with the cursor, is where we had dropped the atomic bombs and the country that we had fought at the end of World War II. And we're going to see that China is located here, and here's North and South Korea. And these are going to be the countries that we're really talking about today. So that peninsula of Korea is located between China and Japan. During World War II, Japan controlled that area because Japan was attempting to build an empire. But after World War II, Japan loses, and so they lose control of this area. And the Soviets are going to move into North Korea, and the United States will move into South Korea. So I'm going to go back to the map here and show you that Japan once controlled this area because they were trying to spread to all over to build an empire. After they lose, the Allies, which include the United States and the Soviet Union, are in charge of this area. And so North Korea is going to be run by the Soviets, and the south part of Korea is going to be run by the United States. So the North is communist, and the South is not. We're going to see in 1948 that the Republic of Korea will be formed in the South, and the United States will leave. We feel like they are now in control of themselves. But the North is going to continue being led by the Soviet Union, and they'll have a communist leader there. And so they're going to be split, and they're actually still split there today. It's known as the 38th parallel. The 38th parallel, and we see that North Korea is colored in red, again, to symbolize communism. So there's going to be a lot of tension between the North and the South because they have those different ideas. And of course, we know from our last section that both want those ideas to spread. And so that's what's just going to happen in this war. June 25th, 1950, North Korea is going to invade South Korea. They cross into that 38th parallel. The United Nations Security Council that was formed to stop conflict is going to step in and say, hey, that's wrong, you need to stop. But the Soviets didn't really care because they had boycotted the United Nations. And so the UN says, all right, we're going to step in and we're going to help South Korea. And President Truman will order American troops go to that area and fight in what becomes known as a Korean War. So my friends, look at this. The Soviet Union and the United States are involved, but they're not fighting directly. They're just backing other countries. That's what it means to be a proxy. Like you're involved indirectly. And that's what's happening here. The North is being backed by the Soviet Union, and the South is being backed by the United States. There's going to be 15 other nations that also step in to help in South Korea. Truman calls it police action. He says, really, we just need to send our troops in there and to restore order and get things back to the way that they're supposed to be. But North Korea is prepared. They have tanks and they have troops and weapons coming from the Soviet Union and also China. So China's getting involved now, and China is also a communist nation. And they will capture Seoul, which is the capital of South Korea. And like we've talked in some of our other units, when the capital has been captured, that should mean that the war is over. So Douglas MacArthur, his picture is up there at the top. He was leading the American troops in Korea. And he says that we're only fighting defensively. There's only a small part of South Korea left. We're about to lose. We need help and we need more manpower. And so MacArthur's going to order 50,000 more troops come to this area, and they are going to push all the way back through the peninsula, all the way into the Chinese city of Manchuria. I'm going to go back to the map real quick. And so I just want you to see here that we were losing where my cursor's at. We were past Seoul. They'd taken the capital. The red was spreading until Douglas MacArthur takes 50,000 troops and pushes them all the way back, past their capital of Pyeongchang. Sorry about that. And then close to China. China says, you better stop. Do not get close to us. We're also communist. We don't want you to come close to us. Please stop. We support the red. Douglas MacArthur didn't listen, my friends. And so communist China gives that warning, and we didn't listen to it well enough. And so 300,000 Chinese troops are going to attack American troops in North Korea, and then they're going to be pushed all the way back to that 38th parallel. And so we had taken the entire peninsula. We had stopped the spread of communism, and we were so happy about that, but we got too close to China, and China's going to push back. President Truman is so angry about this. He says to MacArthur, how could you let this happen? You told me that China was never going to enter the war, but now they did, and now we have another enemy. And now we've let communism spread again. The peninsula is half red and half green when it could have been all green. So Douglas MacArthur says to the president, I know what we can do. Let's drop a nuke on China. Let's drop one of our atomic bombs. Let's do it. Well, Truman says no, because if we do that, we are bringing about nuclear warfare with the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union and China were both backing North Korea. It's a proxy war. We're not fighting directly, but we're afraid, President Truman was afraid that if we bombed China, we will be at war with the Soviet Union, and that's something that we're trying to avoid that nuclear warfare. So Douglas MacArthur goes behind the president's back, and he actually asks Congress for permission to drop a bomb. Well, of course, the president's not going to be very happy about this at all, my friends, and he will fire Douglas MacArthur. Douglas MacArthur was a World War II hero. He had been a leader in the Pacific. He helped fight in Japan and helped lead us to victory there, but you can't go behind the president's back. And also, it was the right choice to not be dropping the nuke on China. So he's fired in April of 1951. We will see the Korean War coming close to an end in July of 1951, but it will take 2 full years for it to fully be over. And this is just because of how strong everyone's feelings really are about communism and capitalism spreading. So communist North Korea wants all of their prisoners returned, and democratic South Korea says, that's fine, we'll release your prisoners, but if they want to stay here where we're free and it's not communist, they should have that choice. So finally, in July of 1953, Korea will become 2 separate nations, and the prisoners are allowed to choose where they want to go. And my friends, it is still like that today. There is still a North Korea and a South Korea. They are not combined. They are still split at that 38th parallel. They are going to create a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, 1.25 miles away from that battle line of the 38th parallel. And so 1.25 miles north, 1.25 miles south, for a total of 2.5 miles of neutral, that you're not crossing over into that area, because if you do, then you are going into enemy territory and you are risking your own life and also risking future battles between the 2 countries. North Koreans and the Chinese who did not like communism were allowed to stay in South Korea, so that was kind of a win, is how South, which was free, was seeing that, giving people a choice if they wanted to return back to the communists or not. And American troops are going to stay there in South Korea for a while to continue giving economic aid, because we don't want it to repeat itself. We don't want North Korea to just push into South Korea and take over. North and South Korea today are still separated. North Korea is still communist. South Korea is still democratic. And honestly, both countries have talked about wanting to reunite and wanting to become more powerful by becoming one nation, but the tension is just still too high. They cannot agree upon what type of government is best, and so they continue to remain separate. Communism in the north and democratic in the south. And so I want to go back to this map. There it is, to show you that before the war, this is what it looked like, and after the war, this is also what it looked like. And so not a whole lot was necessarily gained during this war, but we also didn't lose. And it's important to remember that. We did not allow communism to spread any further. We kept it where it's at. That's the containment policy. We're trying to contain communism from spreading. And then think about that idea of a proxy war and a Cold War, how we're trying not to fight with the Soviet Union, but that there's indirect battles happening where we're involved and so are they, but we're not fighting directly because we're trying to avoid the idea of nuclear warfare. All right, my friends, go ahead and work on the 27.4 review questions. And if you have any questions, let me know.